I was in the middle of a custody battle when my neighbor came over and said, "If you lose, I'll gladly take your kid. You're not cut out for this." I thought she was trying to be cruel. I was wrong. 2 days later, my ex showed up in court with a character letter, written by the neighbor. It claimed I screamed at my child daily, left him alone, and had a history of violence. None of it was true. But when we pulled up my doorbell camera, it had captured something the judge never expected. A rehearsal. I'm not the type to post on here, but I need to get this out. And maybe someone out there needs to hear it, too. This is a long one, and it's not pretty. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm 35, single mom to my 5-year-old son, Mason. His dad, Derek, and I split up 2 years ago. At first, we shared custody, but things got messy fast. He didn't want to be a father, he wanted control. He hated that Mason and I were doing fine without him. The court stuff started last year. Derek filed for full custody out of nowhere. Claimed I was unstable. Said I was keeping Mason from him. None of it was true. I work from home, my house is clean, my kid is happy. But he knew the system, and he knew how to twist it. Things were already stressful when Rachel moved in next door. Rachel Hensley. Late 40s. Single. No kids. Lived alone. From the outside, she seemed normal. She'd wave when I was bringing groceries in. She offered to take my trash cans to the curb once. Harmless, right? But then she started getting too close. She'd show up when Mason was playing in the front yard. Sit on her steps and ask him questions. Does your mom let you stay up late? Do you wish you had more toys? Are you happy? It gave me a bad feeling. I asked her nicely to stop asking him personal stuff. She smiled and said, "Oh, I just love kids." That was the first red flag. Then she started offering to babysit. Repeatedly. Even when I said no. "I don't mind watching him for an hour," she'd say. "You need a break." I told her we were fine. She still wouldn't quit. One day she brought over homemade cookies and said, "You should really take better care of yourself. You look exhausted." It wasn't concern. It was judgment. I stopped talking to her after that. Kept my distance. But I didn't know how deep she was involved until it was almost too late. 2 weeks ago, I was out on the porch. Mason was inside coloring. Rachel came walking up our shared sidewalk like she owned the damn street. She had this weird smile, like she was enjoying something. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you lose that custody case, I'll gladly take your kid. You're not cut out for this." I said, "What the hell did you just say?" She just shrugged. "You heard me. I told her to stay away from us." I was pissed but confused. I thought she was just trying to get under my skin. I didn't realize that wasn't the warning. It was a threat. 2 days later, I showed up in court for another hearing. Derek was there with his lawyer, acting smug. Too smug. I should have known something was coming. His lawyer stood up and said they had a character letter from a neutral third party. "Rachel Hensley," he said. My heart dropped. The judge opened the file and started reading. Rachel wrote that I screamed at Mason almost daily. That I had a violent temper. That I left him alone for hours. She even said, "She's not stable." I'm genuinely worried about the child. I wanted to scream. None of it was true. My lawyer tried to object, but the judge said the letter would be reviewed. She looked concerned. Then she turned to me and said, "Do you have anything to respond with? Any evidence?" I was shaking. I have a doorbell cam. That's when I remembered. After Rachel got too involved, I'd installed a Ring cam. It didn't feel necessary at the time, just a precaution. Now I thanked God I had it. I pulled up the footage from the day Rachel made that comment on the porch. The camera had recorded everything, including what happened after she left. She walked back to her porch. Stood at the edge, facing someone just off camera. Then I heard his voice, Derek's. Rachel started practicing. Actually rehearsing the lies she put in the letter. I've seen her scream at him almost daily, she said. Then paused. No, that sounded too fake. Let me try again. Derek, make it more serious. Say you've seen bruises. Or heard things. The judge won't act unless it's bad. Rachel, okay. She locks him in his room sometimes. He told me he's scared of her. Better? They kept going. Like it was a play. Like they were practicing lines for a movie. My hands were shaking as I handed the phone to my lawyer. He asked for a recess to submit the footage. The judge agreed. We came back an hour later. The courtroom was quiet as the video played. You could hear every word. When it ended, the judge stared at the screen. Then at Derek. Then at Rachel, who'd been brought in to testify. She asked them both if they had anything to say. Rachel tried to backpedal. It was a joke. We were just talking, the judge cut her off. You rehearsed a false statement to influence a custody case. That is not a joke. Rachel turned pale. Derek didn't say anything. He looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. The judge slammed her gavel and said, I'm granting the mother full temporary custody effective immediately. Mr. Gates, you may face charges for submitting false evidence. And Ms. Hensley, you are not to have any contact with this child again. Bailiffs, please detain her for questioning. Rachel started shouting as they escorted her out. I was trying to help. He doesn't belong with her. It didn't matter. She was done. Derek was next. The judge said he'd be investigated for perjury and conspiracy. His lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. I walked out of that courtroom holding Mason's photo in my hand. I didn't cry. I was too numb. Too angry. Later that night, I sat on the floor of our living room, watching Mason sleep on the couch with his stuffed elephant. I looked at him and thought about how close I came to losing him. All because two sick people wanted control. That's when I made my choice. They thought this was over. But I'm not done. Now I'm going to fight back. Legally. Quietly. And I'm going to make sure they both pay. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. First was to my lawyer. I told him I wanted to go after both Derek and Rachel, civil suits, restraining orders, everything. He said we had a strong case for defamation, emotional distress, and possibly even attempted custodial interference. Second was to the detective listed in the court's order. The one now investigating Rachel and Derek. I asked if I could provide more evidence. He told me to come in. I spent the rest of the week going through every clip from my doorbell cam, every text Derek ever sent me, every weird moment with Rachel that I had brushed off. I made a folder called War. It wasn't a joke. I was done being polite. Then, 3 days later, I got a letter. It was taped to my door. There was no envelope. Just a folded sheet of notebook paper. In messy handwriting, it said, "You might have won this round, but the truth always comes out. You're not innocent. You're just better at hiding it. Everyone slips up eventually." There was no name. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Rachel. She was out on bail. I called the detective immediately. He told me to bring the note in. I did. They took fingerprints, ran handwriting analysis. But since it wasn't a direct threat, they couldn't arrest her, yet. Still, the restraining order was now a priority. My lawyer filed it the same day. We requested emergency approval. It was granted. Rachel couldn't come within 300 feet of me or Mason. The moment she did, she'd be back in cuffs. I thought things might calm down after that. But a week later, I got a call from Mason's preschool. The director sounded nervous. "Hi. I'm calling because someone came by today asking about Mason. She said she was a relative and needed to pick him up early. But she wasn't on the approved list, so we said no." I felt cold. What did she look like? She had shoulder-length brown hair. Wore a gray jacket. Said her name was Kathy, but, honestly, she kind of looked like your neighbor. I recognized her from the news. I thanked her for not letting Mason leave. Then I called the police again. Turns out Rachel had changed her hair and tried to pick up my son using a fake name. The school had surveillance. The footage was clear. This time, she was arrested again, for violating the restraining order and attempted child abduction. She didn't get out this time. But here's the twist no one saw coming. While Rachel sat in jail, Derek filed an emergency motion to challenge my custody again. His lawyer claimed I was emotionally unstable due to ongoing stress, and that I was using these accusations to isolate the child from his father. I couldn't believe it. After everything, he was still coming for us. But then, something changed. Someone I didn't expect reached out to me. Her name was Brianna. She was Derek's ex before me. I barely knew her, but she messaged me on Facebook and said, "I saw what's happening in court. You're not the first. I have proof he did this before." She said Derek had tried to take her daughter when they broke up years ago. He lied in court. Got people to write fake letters. And guess who helped him? Rachel. I nearly dropped the phone. Brianna had court records, emails, even texts between her and Rachel. They'd lost touch after she moved, but she still had everything. She offered to send it to my lawyer. Said she'd even testify if needed. I thanked her, tears running down my face. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. With Brianna's help, we built a solid case. My lawyer submitted it with our response to Derek's motion. We also filed to get full, permanent custody, no visitation. But Derek didn't back off. He was arrogant. Thought he could spin the story again. What he didn't know. I had one last piece of evidence. Something I hadn't shown anyone yet. A voicemail from 2 months ago, left accidentally. It was Derek talking to someone, probably Rachel. In it, he said, "If I can get Mason away from her, she'll lose it. And once she snaps, I'll take everything." It was dated. Timestamped. And real. I sent it to the detective. Then I waited for the next hearing. And I was ready. The morning of the next court date, I dropped Mason off with my sister in Greeley. She'd driven up to help, after everything started getting dangerous. I didn't want Mason anywhere near that courthouse. I walked in with my lawyer, feeling a strange calm. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry, and I was prepared. Derek was already there. Dressed sharp. Fake concerned look on his face, like always. His new lawyer was some expensive type from Denver. The kind who smiles like he already won. But today, the judge was different too. More serious. Less patient. Right away, Derek's lawyer stood up and started in about how I was creating hysteria and painting the father as abusive with no real proof. He said the allegations against Derek were exaggerated and that I was on a personal mission to destroy his reputation. That's when my lawyer stood up and said, "We'd like to present new evidence, Your Honor. Including testimony from someone with a past history involving both Mr. Gates and Ms. Hensley." The judge raised her eyebrows. "Proceed." First, we submitted the voicemail. The judge listened with her mouth tight. She didn't say anything when it ended, just nodded slowly. Then Brianna took the stand. She testified to everything. How Derek had pulled the same stunt with her years ago. How he manipulated their custody case, got Rachel to lie, and even stalked her for months after she won full custody of her daughter. She showed emails, screenshots, text messages from Rachel threatening her if she didn't drop the case. The courtroom was silent. Derek sat there, face pale, jaw clenched. But the moment that changed everything was when the detective entered with a surprise. He'd subpoenaed Rachel's phone records. They found dozens of texts and call logs between Rachel and Derek, all during the custody case. But that wasn't the worst of it. One of those texts, sent the day before Rachel tried to take Mason from preschool, said, "If you can grab him, do it. She'll be too scared to fight back after." The judge slammed her hand on the bench. "Enough." She ordered Derek to stand. Then, in front of everyone, she said the court was recommending the district attorney file charges for conspiracy to commit child abduction and perjury. She stripped him of all visitation rights. Effective immediately. But here's where things got even darker. As we were leaving the courtroom, Derek snapped. He lunged toward me, shouting, "This isn't over. You ruined my life." Court officers tackled him before he got to me. People were screaming. Mason's photo fell out of my purse and landed on the floor. I just stood there and stared at it while they dragged him out. I thought that would be the end of it. But 3 days later, I got a knock on the door. It was a man I didn't know. Older. Gray beard, serious eyes. Said his name was Alan. He looked at me and said, "I'm Rachel's brother. I need to talk to you." I almost slammed the door in his face. But something about the way he said it, like he didn't want to be there either, made me stop. "I haven't spoken to Rachel in years," he said. "Not since she lost her son." My stomach turned. "What?" He nodded. "She had a son. Died when he was 8. Car accident. She was driving." I didn't say anything. Just listened. "She lost everything after that. Her job, her marriage. Got real bitter. She kept saying it should have been different. That she should have gotten a second chance." He looked at me with tired eyes. "When I saw what she did to you, I realized she wasn't trying to help Derek. She wanted to replace what she lost." He handed me a photo. It was of a boy who looked a lot like Mason. Curly hair. Big eyes. I gave the picture back. "She tried to steal my son." He nodded. "I know. That's why I'm here. I wanted you to know, she's never going to stop on her own." Then he left. That night, I didn't sleep. Rachel was still in jail, but my gut told me she wasn't done. And Derek, even behind bars, he had this way of getting others to do things for him. I was still in the middle of something. And I had to figure out just how far they were willing to go. It didn't take long. A week after Alan came by, I got another message, this time through a fake Instagram account. No name. Just a DM that said, "TikTok. You're not safe just because she's behind bars." I showed it to the detective. He traced the IP, it was sent from a public library in Cheyenne. Less than 2 hours away. Rachel had friends. That much was clear now. The DA officially filed charges against both Rachel and Derek. Attempted child abduction, conspiracy, perjury, and obstruction of justice. I thought that would be the end. But the truth was, the damage had already spread. A CPS investigator showed up at my door not long after, saying they had to do a welfare check because of multiple anonymous reports of neglect. One look at Mason's happy face, his clean room, his routine, she apologized. She said it was protocol, but it was obvious what was going on. Someone was still trying to drag me through the mud. That's when I hit my limit. I told my lawyer to go full force with the civil suits, against both of them. I wanted them not just gone, I wanted them buried under court fees and lawsuits. I wanted a permanent restraining order. And I wanted their names attached to what they tried to do, forever. We filed. I sued Rachel for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and attempted interference with custody. I sued Derek for the same, and more. I included damages, court costs, and a petition to have all his parental rights terminated. 2 months passed. Rachel's court date came first. She showed up in court looking half dead. Hair greasy, hands shaking. She pled guilty. No contest. Her lawyer begged for leniency, said she was mentally unwell and grieving a past trauma. I didn't care. I told the judge she knew what she was doing. That she rehearsed lies to take my son. That grief doesn't excuse criminal conspiracy. The judge agreed. Rachel got 3 years in prison, no parole for at least 2. Court ordered psychological treatment, too. And a permanent restraining order. She'll never be allowed within 500 feet of Mason again. Ever. When they let her out, she looked right at me. I could have been good to him, she whispered. I said nothing. Then came Derek. He tried to fight it. Hired another new lawyer. Claimed I was manipulating the system. Tried to say I turned Mason against him. But Mason, my brave little boy, was the one who sealed it. He was allowed to give a statement, supervised. Just a few minutes. But I'll never forget what he said. The judge asked if he remembered his dad. Mason looked down, then said, "He made mommy cry. I don't want to go with him." Simple. Clear. And that was it. The judge terminated Derek's rights. Permanently. No appeals. No visitation. No contact. She said he showed a pattern of manipulation, abuse of the legal system, and total disregard for the safety of his child. The courtroom was quiet as the gavel came down. Outside, I exhaled for the first time in months. I won. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like survival. I lost sleep. I lost trust. I lost parts of myself in the fight to keep my son safe. And I made mistakes too. I ignored signs early on. I let Rachel get close. I didn't trust my gut soon enough. I thought people were just weird, not dangerous. I know better now. Now, I keep things locked down. Camera on every entrance. A security system. Mason's school has a list. No one gets near him without a background check. Ever again. I'm not paranoid. I'm prepared. Derek and Rachel taught me that some people don't want to hurt you to win. They want to hurt you just because they can. But I'm still here. And Mason? He's safe. He's smiling. And they'll never touch him again.